Okay, guys, I'm going to get started. Hopefully you can all hear me. We're going to let people trickle in from outside, that's fine. But in the interest of keeping everyone on schedule so that you have time to go on the tours at the end of this session, so that you have time to go out for dinner, which I'll mention at the end. We have a dinner that's available for anyone here. Everyone is welcome to attend that. I'll talk more about that at the end, but I just want to get started with our final presentation of the day. I hope that you've all enjoyed what you've seen so far. I think you've seen the students' perspective on what they like about this medical school, and I hope that has had a deep and meaningful impact on your decision making, because you have choices. We are not the only medical school. We recognize that. When we do our interview days, when we review your applications, every part of it is recognizing that we need to recruit the best and the brightest medical students, and it's important that we show you exactly what you're signing up for, all that the University of Toledo has to offer. So the topic of my talk is actually quite similar to Dr. Mattis's talk earlier. I think we've been maybe watching the same TED Talks. So we have a similar concept of dealing with some of the stresses in medical school and how you might go about doing that. So you all you've heard me talk before. My name is Dr. David Pearson. I am an associate professor in the Department of Radiation Oncology. That is my day job. My additional job is to be a graduate program director. I'm also a residency program director. And in my spare time, I am the associate dean of admissions for the College of Medicine. And I love all of the things I do, and it's hard for me to consider giving up any of those things. But it does mean that there's probably needs to be more hours in the day. So if anyone has any ideas how we can fix that. So you guys have spent years figuring out what it is you want to do. You've decided that you want to become a physician, and you've done some research into what this job entails. And you've come up with some ideas about what a physician does. And you've observed physicians, maybe shadowed with physicians, worked with some healthcare professionals, and you have some idea now what it's going to be like to be a physician. Now, there is undoubtedly going to be a lot of things that you don't know about what physicians do. When you shadow physicians, they will show you maybe the good side of medicine. But of course, for every job, there's always going to be some harder sides. So the obvious ones, maybe physicians like to spend time with their patients. And then the thing that they don't like doing is all the paperwork. Maybe they love seeing patients get better, and the thing they don't like doing is arguing with insurance companies. But like with every job, there is going to be ups and downs, and you're aware of that. So what do you think the qualities are that a great physician needs to have? Obviously, there are some cliche answers to this question, and I encourage you to give the cliche answers to the question of what does a good physician do? What is a good physician like? But I also want you to think about what are the other aspects. Now, we're going to make this a little bit interactive, so I'm not just asking you the question. I'm hoping that you will pick up your phones and take a little snapshot of this screen here, and we're going to use Paul EV in this presentation to make sure that you're all active and awake throughout this presentation. So the first question that I want you to try to answer is, what do you think makes a great physician? What do you think the qualities of a great physician would be? And maybe you have a role model. Maybe there's someone you can think of. Maybe you've experienced this with a physician that you've worked with. What is it that you thought that they were really good at? So I'll give you a second to get these to come in. Okay. Oh no. I have activated the poll because I can see it. Oh, that's probably why. No. Well, we got lots of great answers that have come in, and I can see all of them. But I can't seem to get them to come up on my screen here. Okay, give me 1 second, I think. Oh, we don't have a browser. All right. Well, I'll tell you what we might have to do then, since I cannot display your results, I'm going to have to give you the answers that have come in. So we had lots of great answers coming in. I'm probably looking at about 100 words here that describe a great physician. But this is a word cloud. So the ones that are the biggest are the ones that are the most common. And probably the things that are coming in that are the most common are compassion, and empathy, an advocate, a listener, having ability, determination, understanding, thoroughness, a good communicator, compassionate, bedside manner. Yeah, lots of great answers coming in there. But there's a few things that I thought of as well that I've displayed here. And they're not necessarily the obvious ones. But I have a reason for wanting to ask about these things, or wanting to think about these things. So I think that good physicians also have to be moral and ethical. And I'm sure that in your answers here, that was kind of on your mind. They also have to be leaders, right? So physicians are a part of a team. They often lead a team. They have to be role models, resourceful problem solvers, right? They have to be able to deal with problems that arise and solve those problems. And I think one of the ones that I think is not necessarily obvious is that although it's not necessarily required to be a good physician, if we want to change some of the problems that we have in our society, there are also going to need to be activists, lobbyists, and be political. And I think that was something that you may be aware of, is that we have issues in our healthcare system, and it's going to be your generation that are going to have the skills and the motivation to want to fix this. So what are the problems? I won't go into all the details. I don't want to actually make this a presentation that is demoralizing and kind of gives an impression of medicine that is not good. But we do have problems, and I encourage you to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So I'm showing you a graph on the screen here. I want to see if anyone recognizes this graph. And again, we'll use poll EV. I will see your answers, and then I'll tell you what the class thinks. So what do you think this graph is? Maybe you've seen it before. It's been actually, this graph has been shown in one way or in another in a number of major news articles in the last few years. And it does highlight some of the issues that we have in medicine. So let's see. Oh, I didn't activate it. So if you were waiting for me, it's now activated. Okay, so we have answers coming in here. I'll give you a few seconds to think about this one. So we have a graph, and the vertical axis isn't labeled. I removed the label because otherwise that would kind of give the answer away, right? But on the bottom axis, we've got dollars, and it goes up to about $11,000. I will tell you that about two-thirds of the audience is getting this right now. All right, so the first option that I gave you was the cost of insulin as a function of year. That's actually, you're probably aware that that's actually a pretty common problem, the cost of insulin spiked, went up considerably. That is not the answer. This is not a graph of cost of insulin. Is it the cost of radiation therapy? That would be appropriate to my field. That has probably increased over the years. And it is not the cost of an average sedan. It is, however, the cost of healthcare in the US. It is the amount of money that we pay in the US for healthcare as a person, not meaning that the government pays this money, but out-of-pocket money that we put into the healthcare system per year. This is the average amount. And the axis that was hidden on the other side here was life expectancy. So the graph was actually showing that life expectancy in the US is lower than it is in most of our peer countries. For all the developed countries, the US puts twice as much money into healthcare, but gets less out of it. Because at the end of the day, what is it that we want from our healthcare system? We want quality of life, and we want to live a long time. We want to see our grandchildren and things like that. But this is one of the problems. This is by no means the only problem in healthcare, but this is one of the problems. And it is pretty much unique to the US. Most of the other countries in the world, the developed countries, don't have this issue where they pump loads and loads of money into healthcare, but don't necessarily get a lot to show for it. I'm not going to talk all day about this issue. Again, that would be rather depressing, but I want you to think of this as an opportunity for you to be part of the solution, to think about, to at least recognize that we do have some issues, and these are man-made issues, and therefore the solutions are obtainable. These are not things that we just can't solve. We can think about it and we can solve that. So we know that healthcare is not free. As a slightly unrelated issue, one of the other things that happen in the US, and maybe this happens in other countries as well, is that hospitals are typically run for profit. So hospitals in the US typically are run for profit. You will probably have heard that most hospital organizations, most big healthcare systems operate under the term not-for-profit. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but not-for-profit doesn't mean they don't make money or profit. In fact, they're pretty damn good at making profit. Not-for-profit is a tax code, not a business model. Making money is definitely something that hospitals should be good at because they are providing a service that everybody needs. And I don't in any way say that that's a problem. And I certainly don't want to indicate that people in healthcare shouldn't earn a good salary because of they work really hard, and they provide a service that we all need. So that's certainly not what I want you to take from this. But we do make a lot. The hospitals are run to make a profit, and there's obviously going to be some side effects to that. And another issue that you may not be aware of is that many hospital systems are not actually run by physicians. In most other fields, in most other specialties, in most other businesses, you would think that the people running the business are the people that specialize and have the knowledge. But in healthcare, that is not necessarily the case. That is not to say that there are no hospitals in the US that are where the management team is entirely made of physicians, but it's not necessarily the most common model. However, research has shown that hospitals that are run by physicians, where the physicians are CEOs and executives for the hospital, those hospitals have been shown to operate 25% better in almost every metric that was studied. And so this came out of a paper that I was perusing, and I thought that that's another one of the kind of issues. Again, these are not necessarily things that we need to work on, but I want you to be aware of these because these issues are things that I think that you can work towards, and that your generation, being the smartest generation, being the most tech-savvy generation, and also being a generation of people that want to fix the issues that you see around in society, these are opportunities for you. These are things that you can think about. Now, these may not be the things that you were thinking of when you signed up for medical school or a career in medicine. Maybe you had specific goals, but I think these are things that you will have the tools in your arsenal to fix. These are things that being a leader in medicine allows you to actually not only help your patients on a one-on-one basis, but also to help a much larger audience. So we want you to be ideally not just foot soldiers, not just physicians, but to actually be generals, to be leaders in medicine. So these are just things that I wanted to point out as being opportunities, things that you can work on. The main topics that I want to talk about today that are kind of in line with what Dr. Mattis was talking about earlier, are to think about how you're going to stay motivated through medicine, through a career in medicine, and more specifically, how to stay motivated in medical school. And then we'll talk about managing some other challenges. So motivation is not actually something that you can just lose because you actually never owned it. It doesn't belong to you. Motivation should be more thought of as a muscle that you can train. And I don't think that's something that we necessarily think about. We observe in ourselves that sometimes we lose motivation in things that we're doing, and we have ways of coping with that. But unfortunately, motivation is not something you can stick an AirTag on and then easily go and find. But we will talk about strategies to help you stay motivated. And one of the things that you can do to stay motivated throughout medical school is to think about clear goals. When you come to medical school, you will be motivated. You'll be the most excited on day one, and then the exams will start coming in, and the stress will start to build up, and the number of expectations that people have on you will start to increase. And at some point, you might start to lose your motivation because you can't see the wood for the trees. You've got so many things in front of you that you need to take care of, and you start to lose sight of the bigger goal. So I just want to remind you to try to be aware of your goal. Your goal is obviously to make it through medical school, make it into the best residency possible, make it into the medical specialty that you're really hoping to go into. Just try to stop every once in a while, because this will happen. You will kind of get bogged down, maybe feel a little bit burnt out, and you'll need to focus on, I just need to get through this one exam. I just need to get through this one system. So set yourself shorter term goals. Otherwise, what you'll end up with is, if you have a goal that is to get through medical school, if you run out of motivation in the first semester, the first thread, you've got 3.5 years to try to get through. So I think this is probably kind of intuitive that you'll want to set yourself goals to, I want to make it through this exam, I want to make it through the next exam, I want to make it through this year, I want to make it through the step one, and then you've always got something new to look forward to. And I think that will allow you to stay motivated in medical school. If you do find that you lose motivation and it's not just something that you can go to the gym, work out for an hour and then come back and then you feel reinvigorated and remotivated, if it's more of a long-term problem, then what you might be encountering is burnout. So maybe you've all heard of burnout. It is definitely something that affects people in very high stress environments. In the field of medicine, we are under a lot of pressure to perform. There's a lot of things that need our attention immediately. We sometimes feel like there's just so many things piling up. And you will see this also in medical school when it is exams piling up. You've got multiple things that need to be done before the end of the weekend, and you're like, I'm hoping to do something fun this weekend, but on Monday I have 5 quizzes. So these kind of things, they build up on you, but and the solutions that we often make for ourselves are to do things like work out or to do something we enjoy. And we do definitely need to do those things, but we have to be aware of the fact that sometimes it's going to be more serious than just jumping on the treadmill for an hour or going for a run. So burnout might actually occur during your time in medical school, and I just want you to be all aware of that so that you can observe, so that you can help each other. If you see someone else that's struggling, if they seem to be overwhelmed, if they fail to turn up to events, if you hear that they're sleeping in all day, it could be that they have burnout. Burnout is possible in medical school because of the stress of medical school. But we also know from research that it actually is more likely to occur later on. I think there's actually good reasons why it may actually occur less in medical school. It's more likely to occur in residency, and then it's even more likely to occur once you've finished your training and you're actually practicing and you're out there in the field. It's even more likely to occur at that point. Why is that? Because during medical school, you have a short-term goal. You have and a long-term goal of making it through medical school. And then when you're in residency, you have more goals. You have the goal of graduating from residency, and your dream is to become a physician, and you're almost there. So you have a goal right in front of you. But then once you've achieved that goal, what is the motivation now? Like once you've got the job, once you're practicing, where is the motivation? What is your next goal? And I think that is part of the reason why we see burnout is actually more of a serious issue in practicing physicians than it is in trainee physicians. And while I was making this presentation, I had to, of course, stop and think about whether I had experienced burnout. I think with all the roles that I have, it is entirely possible that I've taken on too much for myself, and at any given time, I might have too many things on my plate, and I start to feel a little bit run down and exhausted, and a little bit burned out. And I think that has happened to me, but I don't think it's ever been that serious, because burnout can be quite serious if it becomes a long-term problem. It can lead to serious mental health issues, but I think I've had to deal with it more on a short-term basis. And as I started to reflect on this, I think one of the reasons that I have been mostly immune to serious burnout is because of the fact that I work in academia. So I want to make a plug at this point. As future physicians, I want to encourage you to think about working in academia, because I think it is a very rewarding place to be. And it is also because we have so many short-term goals in front of us. As an academic in medicine, I always have the goal of I want to make sure my next group of students makes it through. I want to make sure that the next class of students we admit is the best class ever. I want to make sure my residents graduate on time. I want to make sure that my medical students that I'm working with get that research project, get that paper, that I'm not holding this process up. And I think that with those short-term goals, it actually protects us from burnout in academia. Even though we do actually accept more responsibilities, I think it also helps us. And of course, we have the opportunity to celebrate. As academics in medicine, we have graduation ceremonies, we have white coat ceremonies. There's nothing better than seeing one of your students graduate and knowing that you helped with that. And I think that's another thing that could protect us from burnout. So how can you make that useful? I would, if you're considering going into private practice or considering going into academia, this is something I want you to think about, that the opportunities that we have in academic medicine mean that we can avoid burnout in ourselves by having those short-term goals. What else can you do while you're in medical school to protect yourself from burnout? You can stay connected, or even after medical school. Make sure you stay connected throughout medical school. You've heard how our students are very well connected with each other. They have social activities. That's protecting them from stress. That's protecting them from burnout. But as we get older, we tend to lose connections with people. I've seen research that shows that as you get older, the number of friends you have drops off, right? And that actually doesn't help us when it comes to protecting us from stress and burnout. So stay connected. Make sure you keep in touch with all your classmates that you worked with throughout medical school, because all of the problems that you're experiencing with stress, they're going to be going through the same thing. So when you look around and you feel like you're the captain of a ship that's sinking, remember that there are many of your classmates, 174 of them out there in the world somewhere, that are probably going through very similar issues. So I encourage you to make sure you stay in contact with them. Try to identify any forms of stress that you see while you're in medical school and address those things. And concentrate on the things that you do enjoy. Focus on what brings you joy. Work for ways to make the work that you do more efficient so that you can spend more time doing the things that you enjoy, even if it's ways of getting yourself out of the hospital, out of the office, get you home sooner. But I also want you to think about how you can protect other people, because as professionals in healthcare, you will be leaders in the healthcare field, and there's no point having an office that you're in charge of if everyone else is burned out and you're the only person that isn't, because you know how to protect yourself from burnout. But you should help to identify stress within the people that you work with and make sure you can protect them, because that will also be beneficial for your patients. There's no point having them all stressed out. So I think, and I hope that you've seen this today, that we do have a community here at the medical college that is very supportive. And I think you'll see that from the students you've met today, that they have ways of dealing with stress in medical school, and you will be able to do that too. So after I've said all these horrible things, I hope that you will identify that there are solutions here and they're right in front of you. So I want to break for a second. In your packet that we gave you today, there is a large white folder, and in that folder, there will be some blank pieces of paper that say, "Message to my future self," or have a little blank piece. And we also have some envelopes for you. We put 2 of these envelopes in every packet, but we have more of them down here for anyone else that would like them. What are these for? So I want you to consider writing a letter to yourself that will help motivate you. And we will give these back to you 4 years from now. 4 years from now. So you will actually be writing to yourself in 4 years. A lot of things are going to change in 4 years, right? You will have grown enormously. So I want you to think about that and reflect and write a message to yourself. And for all the parents in the audience, you're not off the hook. I want you to write a letter also. I want you to write a letter to your sons and daughters, or if you're here with, students are here with loved ones, we have envelopes and pens and paper for them as well. I want them also to write a letter. And again, we're going to give this back. We're going to give this back to you in 4 years.
And we have extra envelopes and papers for you. So just raise your hand if you need an extra. Okay.
There's some more at the back there. Thanks. And we're going to collect these envelopes, and they're going to go into cold storage. And then when it gets to your final year, and you have made it to the end of the medical school experience, we're going to give you these envelopes to open up. So what advice would you give yourself for the future? And it doesn't need to be advice. It could just be, what do you want to tell your sons and daughters? How proud are you going to be of them when they have made it through 4 years of medical school? So when you are done with this, just stick it in the envelope, seal it up, and we will collect these at the end of the talk today. We'll come around. We have this wonderful storage box that we're going to put all of the envelopes in. Make sure you write your name on the front of the envelope, or if it's not your name, the person that you're addressing the letter to, so that we know who to give this to 4 years from now. I'm going to move on to the next section of the presentation, and it's perfectly fine if you're not listening to me. You can continue writing. That's fine. You'll catch up. This isn't a radiation oncology lecture, so there's no test at the end. The next thing we're going to talk about today, another thing that it does occur similar to stress and burnout and all the other nasty things that occur to people going through medical school. Another thing that you may have heard of is imposter syndrome. So we're going to talk a little bit about what imposter syndrome is and what we can do to help mitigate this. So imposters are people that are fraudulent, are pretenders, fakers, charlatans. So what does that mean for imposter syndrome? So there is multiple components to imposter syndrome, but essentially it comes down to having self-doubts, fear that you're going to be discovered as being a fake, and also disbelieving any evidence to the contrary. So there is obviously with everyone here today, and this is where we're going with this obviously, this is an issue with medical students. Medical students often feel that they don't belong here, that they don't deserve to be here. They believe that they were lucky to get into medical school, and if they applied again, they wouldn't be accepted the second time around. That despite having good grades and good MCAT scores, they look around the class and they find somebody who has higher grades and higher MCAT scores, and therefore determine that they got accepted into medical school. It was a fluke, it was a mistake, and it wouldn't happen again. So I want to tell you that that is obviously not true. I feel like I'm actually doing a pretty good job. And we don't accept people into medical school by mistake. Everybody, and Dr. Mattis mentioned this also, we are very meticulous about who we accept. Everybody here deserves to be here. But despite me telling you this, despite all the evidence to the contrary, disbelieving the evidence is part of imposter syndrome. So people in this room will undoubtedly, at some point in the next 4 years, convince themselves that we made a mistake here. Imposter syndrome is quite common in lots of high-stress professions. It's not something that is restricted to medicine, but it does occur a lot in a high-stress environment like medical school. So we're going to talk about the profiles of imposter syndrome, and these are essentially kind of fun labels that we've put onto people that maybe have certain characteristics of imposter syndrome. The first possible characteristic of imposter syndrome is the soloist. This is a person that believes they can get everything done by themselves and they don't need any help. They will be able to complete all of the demands upon them without getting any help from anybody else. And if they do need help, then they consider that to be a failure, that they did something wrong because they needed help to finish a task, to get through something that they needed to do. They see help as a weakness, and because they sometimes feel like they can't possibly ask for help because that would be a weakness, they can end up overburdening themselves. And so that's one possible characteristic that you might see in people that are susceptible to imposter syndrome. Another one is the perfectionist. The perfectionist is someone that sets themselves incredibly high standards. I don't think there's anybody in this room that set themselves particularly high standards, right? So we set ourselves high standards, and occasionally we set standards that are too high for ourselves. And we believe that performance has to be perfect every time. A perfectionist believes that their performance has to be 100% every single time. Otherwise, again, they consider themselves to be a failure. And they tend to be people that sometimes not very flexible. So I see fingers pointing to people to the next of them, yeah. So these are all characteristics that we see in highly successful people. Perfectionists tend to overwork themselves through micromanaging themselves. When given a project, they might never actually finish it because they don't ever think that what they've produced is good enough, and so they keep going and they keep going. And then when the next deadline comes around, well, they're still working on that last project, and so because nothing is good enough, they may struggle to actually complete deadlines. Because they can't just turn in what they have. They can sometimes struggle to work as part of a team, just like the soloist, because again, they think that they need to be able to deal with all the problems themselves. Another possible personality is the natural genius. The natural genius believes that they have never really accomplished anything except through an innate ability. So it wasn't because they worked hard to get here. It was just because they had the right genes and they were lucky, and they're just naturally smart. And that is obviously, there is people that are naturally smart, and that's great. But not everybody is like that. Some people have to work at it, and it's usually a bit of a combination of both. But they think that achievement isn't inherent, and so they don't really take any gratification out of achieving something because they were obviously going to achieve it. It was just because of their natural ability. They have to have achieved this without doing any work. They will often avoid trying new things because new things might lead to an immediate failure, and they won't be willing to overcome that failure. Because if it can't be done immediately, then it can't be done at all. And so they will struggle with this kind of trying out of new things. Another possibility is someone who has the characteristics of being an expert. Again, we're using these labels as just kind of fun names. They're not necessarily supposed to indicate that people consider themselves to be experts or natural geniuses. In fact, exactly the opposite. People that suffer from imposter syndrome will not recognize any of these things in themselves, and will actually just struggle with lots of things because they don't feel they deserve to be here. So the expert is very similar to the perfectionist, but based on their knowledge of things. They need to know everything. If they don't know absolutely everything, then they feel that they are not good enough for that particular topic. So, for example, taking an exam on one specific topic, if they don't feel like they know everything about that topic, then they don't feel prepared to take the exam. And if that's something like the step 1 exam, which can be postponed, then they may postpone that exam because they don't feel that they're ready. They may feel shame for not knowing everything. So there are many, many times when you are not going to know all of the answers. And people that suffer from this often feel like they don't know all the answers, and therefore they feel shame in themselves for that. And they're constantly seeking just to get one more answer correct. And then finally, another potential characteristic is the superhuman. The superhuman pushes themselves harder than everybody else. And they feel like they have to juggle so many balls simultaneously. Otherwise, they consider themselves to be a failure. They don't like saying no, and they take on often too many responsibilities. So think about times that you have been asked to do something and you've said yes, but when in actual fact, you've probably said yes to 5 other things that people have asked you to do. Maybe that's join a club and then do something for that club. And you've taken on too many responsibilities. And that can lead to overexhaustion, overextension, exhaustion, and possibly even burnout. So now, how many people here think that they recognize some of these characteristics? How many people here think that they've, at some point, they have identified something like that in themselves? And I want you to think about whether this is something that you've seen regularly, maybe just sometimes in yourself, or maybe you've never felt this way. Okay, so this one's interesting. I see 38 responses, but I actually don't see what any of the answers are. But I trust that, at least some people here have recognized it in themselves. And I know for a fact that some people here have recognized it in people that they're sat next to. So these are not necessarily things that you have one of these characteristics. They can definitely overlap. You can have multiple of these characteristics. Some people will have all of them, but it's definitely, in a lot of cases, it's not just having one of these characteristics. Our goal here in the College of Medicine is to make sure that you're able to flourish in order to do well. And in order to do that, you need to kind of step outside your comfort zone and take on more responsibilities than you are necessarily comfortable with. And that means that occasionally you have to accept the fact that you might fail. That there are going to be times when you have to accept that there is going to be so many things going on that you might fail at something, and that is perfectly okay. But we want to make sure that everybody here has the opportunity to thrive and be successful. And I hope that we're able to create that environment here, and I hope that you have seen from our students that they feel that they are in an environment where they can thrive and they can flourish. We're going to talk about some of the things that you can do yourself and with the people around you to mitigate imposter syndrome. Although at the end of it, we're going to talk about how it can actually be a product of your environment. And so it's not necessarily up to you to fix these things. If you see that you have a personality that may suffer from imposter syndrome, that's not your fault, and I don't want you to think that you have to fix it. However, there will be times when you can do things to help yourself, and so we'll talk about what those things are. And essentially what it means is that we're going to have to break this cycle. So the strategy is going to be to recognize that there could be a problem, either in yourself or in other people that you're working with, and then try to identify and name what that problem is, and then engage that problem and then reframe the issue. So recognize it just means identify the things that are causing you stress, identify the things that are causing you to doubt yourself. And once you've identified that, you've, as they say, overcome half of the challenge. Then once we've identified those, then we can start to think about what exactly the issue is and how we can go about thinking about it. We need to engage that problem, and then that means talking to other people. So one of the common themes that you've heard today is that it is good for you to talk to each other. As a class, as a pod, as peers, continue to talk to each other and let people know that you are having issues, because you will not be the only person. Share when you're having difficulties, and then other people can open up. What we do not want is to create an environment where no one feels that they can talk about their problems. We don't want to have an environment where you feel that you're admitting to a weakness that you're going to be penalized for if you say that there's a problem. And the easiest way to do that is to is to communicate with your peers. And if you communicate with your peers, we can all help each other. So practice asking for help. Everybody here should not be ashamed to ask for help. We have an academic enrichment center. We want you to go there. We didn't build this so that you could just not go and not ask for help. So even if you don't think that you're the kind of person that needs help with exams, if you don't think that you've ever needed to go and talk to graduate students to help with assignments that you have, recognize that in medicine, everybody needs help. There is nobody here in this classroom that is perfect, and nobody here is beyond needing help. So recognize that. Now, the strategies that we've identified here don't necessarily need to be done in that order. They can be done in any order at all. But let's look at some examples of how we might go about doing this. If you feel, or if someone feels that they need to fake it till they make it, maybe they should reframe this or reconsider it and think about how talk to trusted peers and recognize the issues, the difficulties that you have are very likely being had by other students in your group or in your pod or in your class. If you see that you didn't do well, and this is definitely something that we see a lot of in medical school, it's unfortunate, but everybody is going to compare themselves to everybody else. Well, you're surrounded by incredibly intelligent people, very hardworking people, and you're going to see that everybody around you is doing well. So whenever you have a day where your test scores are not as high as you hoped, or you fail a systems exam, or even if it's just a little quiz, you're going to feel like that's only you and nobody else could possibly have failed. But talk to people about it, get some advice, recognize that you may not be good at this yet, but you can work on it, and you will get better, you will practice, you will grow and learn. If you identify that you didn't finish something perfectly and you consider that to be a failure, think about, is that really so bad? Is that really the possible, worst case scenario? Maybe you did fail a quiz, but maybe that's just going to help you to do better next time. If you do feel like you need help, again, just talk to people about it. And again, if you have people that feel like they're lucky to be accepted into medical school, you will undoubtedly meet people that have higher test scores than you. You'll come across people that have higher GPAs from you. You will come across people that go to schools that may be perceived to be more prestigious than your school. That doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be here. So reframe that issue. And think about ways that you can, that you may be downplaying your own accomplishments. So recognize your accomplishments, whether that be recognize that you're here in medical school and therefore you've accomplished a lot, or that you're continuing to be in medical school. So I want you to think about how these issues can be a product of an environment. We've probably all heard about a toxic work environment, right? And we very much hope that this here at the College of Medicine is not going to be the toxic work environment. And that is exactly what we have tried to create, and I think we've achieved it. I think from what you've seen, our students are able to flourish. I think you've seen that they are able to thrive and get their full potential, that they're willing to open up, they're willing to talk to each other, they're willing to recognize that they won't do well and perfectly on every test every time, and that that's not necessarily a weakness. But it has been identified that work environments can lead to imposter syndrome. So it's not necessarily, if you recognize in yourself that you may have traits of imposter syndrome, it's not your fault. It can be a product of what your environment is. And we can all do our part to make sure that we can fix that environment here. And we know for a fact that having a diverse environment that's inclusive of everybody can help fix that system so that we can get to the point where we're all able to work together rather than trying to compete with each other. So I hope that you have seen that the environment that we have here is a good working environment. Our hope is that everybody here will thrive in medical school. I think you have all of the tools that you need to do that. And I have a few slides that I actually had deleted in my final version of the presentation. So at this point, I just want to thank quite a few people. The previous Associate Dean of Admissions, I've been in this position for about 1 year. I was an Assistant Dean of Admissions for about 8 years, but I learned a lot from Dr. Perry, who's now the Associate Dean of Admissions at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. Danielle and Amani, you've met here today running around. They've been a massive part of organizing this entire day. We've also got the Office of Admissions. Dr. Bindu Menon has been here. Dr. Delavis has been here. Those are our Assistant Deans of Admission. You've met Dr. Randy Worth. They're all part of our team that have been able to put this together. Dr. Mattis is one of the most popular members of our medical school. She's loved by all in the medical school, so I just want to thank her for presenting here today. And then finally, our ambassadors. We've had so many students that have come here today to tell you their experiences and to help guide you around campus. They're going to be able to take you on a tour, which is optional. If you want to stick around, there's going to be a tour next. They will continue to be here. They will continue to be available to answer any questions that you have. And finally, at the end of the day, we also have a dinner. Again, this is completely optional, but if you'd like to stick around, the Office of Opportunity Inclusion is going to put on a dinner tonight, starting in about half an hour, so you won't have to wait around for too long. So you have options at this point. We thank you for coming here today. If you'd like to stick around for the tour, that would be perfectly great. We have people that can help you with that and take you on a tour. If you'd like to stick around for dinner, that's a possibility too. Otherwise, I wish you all safe travels home, and we're very thankful that you came here today. Feel free to take some pictures outside. Yeah, make sure you get pictures on the way out. We have a photo wall set up. Make sure you get some of these cards and get a whole family photo.
All right, if you are speaking your first tour, please remain seated. We're going to guide you in just a couple of moments. Obviously, if you are leaving, I wish you all the best and safe travels. Thank you for joining us today. What are these?
Oh. Thanks.
Good job.
Thanks. I can't believe my poll didn't work. You see that?
No, I didn't see that.
My polling didn't work.
I was in and out kind of.
Yeah, no, it's fine. There was, the polls. As soon as you went to the slide that had the poll in it, so on this computer it didn't work. It said like browser blocked or something. I was like, that's crazy. Let's stop this.